Hi there. Welcome to Stories, a podcast by Acadium where we focus on the stories of our incredible users. People come to Acadium for a few different reasons. They might be looking to build new skills, whether that's for a career change or just to deepen their craft, or they might be looking to get some eager extra hands on their project or business. In any case, people come to Acadium to grow, and we find that our users often have amazing stories to tell about their journeys, and we're here to share them. Our guest today is Jalisa Haggins. Jalisa was, I think, the first person that I reached out to when we decided that we wanted to do this podcast, because she's been a member of Acadium since it was Gen M. She joined in September of 2019, has completed 3 apprenticeships, and now runs her own agency, which I think is super impressive. And I know that she's got an interesting story to tell. So Jalisa, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of
I'm
course.
excited.
How are things going?
Things are going, with all of this time that we have, um, just doing a ton of research, a ton of kind of building my business from the inside out and finding new opportunities. And yeah, so things are going good.
That's great to hear. I'm really happy to hear that. I would love to build up to some of the things that you just talked about around working on your own business and what that looks like. But
Yeah.
to start, I think we should rewind back to maybe university for you. As I understand, you went to the University of Oklahoma and
Yeah.
studied fine arts. How did you
Yeah.
make that decision? What was that experience like?
Well, so I actually, this is something not very many people know about me. Growing up, I loved acting, but I also loved like detective things. So I actually had to choose between two different colleges if I wanted to go into like a forensic science major or if I wanted to go into acting. So I chose acting, but the program at OU, there's only like 12 people that are brought in each year. So during that process, one of my counselors was like, "Well, you should try fine arts because you like film. You don't know if you want to act, if you want to make film, and fine arts is more of a hands-on experience as opposed to like the actual film department at that time." So I got into, yeah, fine arts and just loved it, loved just creating new things, and my emphasis was film and photography, and I got into video and, like, video performance and stuff like that, and it kind of propelled me into the art community in the town that my college is in Norman, Oklahoma, and so, yeah, that's kind of how I landed there.
And then after university, as I understand it, you went to work a couple of different jobs in
Mhm.
radio broadcasting and television, and
Yeah.
had some success there that we could talk about. But how did you make the decision to sort of take your first job?
Um, so so whenever I was in college, my last semester, I only had like one class, so I moved back home. And in between the classes, I was like, I really need a job. And at that time, I had decided I wanted to be a film editor. So I was applying to all these different just editing jobs, and I ended up getting one at a news station. And from that experience, the shift that I was on, it was overnight, but I was working with the assistant news director and just a whole bunch of just pretty awesome, pretty amazing news producers who were super invaluable to my experience. They would teach me stuff, they would let me write for them, they would let me edit to my kind of preference, what I thought was important to a story. And from there, they kind of just watching them, I was like, oh, I might like news producing, and my news director kind of gave me an opportunity to kind of get in there and learn as I go. And then at one time, a few producers left at the same time, and the news director hired me on, and that was the beginning of my journey into broadcasting.
And what were some of the things that, because I know you're not in broadcasting anymore, but you
Right.
speak pretty fondly of the experience. So I
Yeah.
mean, let's start with that. What were some of the things that you liked the most about working in that industry?
Oh man. Probably the same thing I liked about my fine arts degree is creating things, putting things together and presenting them in a way that makes sense to the viewer. It might not make sense at the beginning. You have to in news producing, you have to read through so so much stuff. You have to research everything and then whittle it down into like 25 seconds of comprehension. you know, Everybody has to understand it. And so I really loved that process. I really, really loved being in the booth and producing a live show. Um, there's just nothing like that kind of rush. It's anything could go wrong because it's live TV, and knowing and understanding your resources of how to react and how to be productive to stop something from happening, I think is something I really, really enjoyed, but really embraced and kind of flourished in.
What was your role in that? I'm curious about this because I have literally zero context for a live
Yeah.
show. What is going on behind the scenes, at least
Oh
from the
man.
perspective of the role or roles that you've been in?
Yeah. Okay. Um, so for my role in a news producer role, you are the person that comes in, you help reporters figure out what stories they're going to do. You sit down, you go through local resources, national resources, things that are being sent to you, quirky things, serious things, informational things, and you write them all down and you put them into just one newscast. And you want to do it in a way where the stories flow together, where it's not jarring, where it's, pleasant to watch, as pleasant as news can be. And then behind the scenes, I'm the person in the anchor's ears telling them, they're reading the stories that I wrote that they helped write. I'm telling them if there's a camera change. I'm telling them if we're doing breaking news, and if there's no way to get them that breaking news, I'm telling it to them in their ear. So while one anchor is talking, I'm telling the other one, and then they start talking, and I tell the other one. I'm the person that's in like the reporter's ear, out in the field, where letting them know how far they are from their live shot, giving them any information that they absolutely need to know before they go live, making sure that their equipment's working, just really coordinating all of that on, a very high level. Yeah, very fast paced.
Have you ever had something go horribly wrong?
Oh my gosh. All the time. All the time. Man, if you can think of it, it probably went wrong on air from, reporters not being ready, maybe their IFB, which is like their little earpiece that allows them to hear us, isn't working and we find out too late and we go to a reporter who's just not ready, or their mic died, or um, the prompter goes down and the anchor has no idea where we are, or their mic stops and so we have to cut to someone else in the studio, or the wrong video rolls, or things of that nature. Very, those times suck, but you learn a lot from them. You learn a lot of kind of knowing your crew, knowing the people you work with, and understanding how to communicate quickly for things to kind of recover quickly. So it's definitely kind of mastering a collaborative process, like a living, breathing process.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to understand. I mean, from what I've gathered so far, sounds like high stress job, but
Yeah.
something that like when it works, when you get into a rhythm with your team, it can be
Oh my
extremely
gosh.
rewarding.
It's
Um,
beautiful.
and I know that you had some success, right? As I
Mhm.
understand it, you've won a few Emmys for your work.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I mean, I know. So what were those for specifically? What were the Emmys for?
One was for this awful, awful tragedy in this small town in Tennessee where a deputy was shot and killed, and there was a manhunt for the guy who shot and killed him. And that was, just awful. But that was a lot of, oh my gosh, this just happened, breaking news, everybody come in, figure out resources. Who are you calling? Who are you talking to? What are you writing? What are you putting together? But then the other one was for, um, a couple of years ago, the first female mayor of Nashville, Megan Barry. I mean, she was very much liked, but she went through a scandal and ended up having to not only step down from being mayor, but she also had to plead guilty to fraud charges. And all of that happened within a couple of hours of one another. So that was, for me, that newscast, that was just pure journalism, like journalism to its core, just teamwork, just really working together to bring people the facts of what's happening so everyone can understand, not, putting our opinion into anything, just very much, this is what's happened, this is what led to it, and this is what's going to happen next. So I'm very, very proud of both of them, but specifically for the Nashville mayor story.
It's amazing. I would be curious next to know some of the things that you maybe didn't like as much about the industry, and maybe that's not the right way to think about it, because I think what I'm trying to get to is this career change that you made. You were
Mm-hmm.
many years into this career in this industry. Look, from what I can tell, you were very good at it, had a lot of success, and then decided
Yeah.
you wanted to make a change. So, take
Yeah.
take that take that question however you will. If it's something you didn't like, or if it's just something that was like inspiring you a little bit more that drew you
Yeah.
to make the change.
Um, well, there are a lot of layers to why I specifically wanted to transition into something like social media. But I think the biggest thing for me for making this career change was I really, really wanted to travel and I really, really wanted to see the world. And there are travel producers, travel reporters, all of that within the news world, but it just wasn't something that I necessarily really wanted to be part of. Um, because usually when producers are sent somewhere for a story, it's not a pleasant experience. And then just within this kind of this time, um, you know, just how the media is treated. That wasn't something I wanted to experience. But I really, really wanted to travel. I didn't think I was going to be able to do it in the way that I wanted to in this role. And then I felt like, as much as I absolutely loved certain aspects of my job, there of course were parts that you don't like, and it's not that you just hate doing them. They might not fit with your personality as much, and it's such a struggle to do them every day. And as you go on and go up, and you're in manager roles and this and that, you have to do those things more. And so I just didn't want to be in a field where I hated going to work. And so there'd be really good days and there'd be really bad days. So I really wanted to move into an industry where I could work from wherever, where I could work remote, so I could really just travel and kind of just experience the world. So
So this all started from a motivation to want to be able to own your work and do it from wherever you wish, anywhere in the
yeah.
world.
Yeah.
And to
Yep.
me, it really feels like, I mean, very different careers, and we can get to the work that you do today, but at its core, I mean, what you're doing, whether it's social media or working in broadcasting, is telling stories for people.
Right. To me, it's the same. It's just connecting with people, knowing how to talk to who.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the process of making that change. So you
hmm
decide that you want to make this change. What happens next?
So I pretty much kind of start to do, when I initially, I started volunteering for people kind of on little bitty things. But this was when I was still working at my station. So, I work, come home, and volunteer as much as I could. But then I was also applying for fellowships and opportunities that would allow me to learn new skills, but also be somewhere else. So as my time with my station came to an end, I was able to volunteer a little bit more. I was able to kind of research a little bit more and figure out what exactly it was that I wanted to do. Did I want to write for people? Did I want to do community management? And a lot of this stuff was just super duper new. I think I kind of tiptoed into it instead of like jumping headfirst into it. So it took me a second to really kind of, I think, align what I was good at in terms of news producing and what I would be good at in social media. Yeah, so it was volunteering and then applying for remote jobs, kind of searching the types of jobs that people are hiring in that capacity.
Right. And what did you find in that process? What sort of volunteer gigs were you taking? What sort of jobs did you end up finding to slowly start building up your skill set?
So one, my very first one, was I was helping this lady out in Texas run like a 24-hour fundraiser on Facebook. It was part of, oh, it's like an annual fundraiser in Austin. It's something, Austin something. But so that was learning how to work with like email and kind of building up to an event. So with that, I basically just kind of made graphics because I was really good just going from my art background and then into news. You have to make a few things for news. I was really good at graphic um, creation and like digital content creation and stuff like that. So I focused mostly on that and then just like little captions. So it was very small. But from there, I kind of went through a really hard phase of just applying to everything and anything. And whatever I was applying to, whatever it would say in the requirements, you have to know how to work like Hootsuite or you have to have experience in this. I would literally just research that, watch like a million videos on it, sign up for it, and just figure out that software. So that's kind of how I got like the foundation of the skills that I was trying to learn. I would look at job requirements and just pick certain skills that I was like, well, I've never done that. Let me figure out how to do this. So, like I don't have a profile on this. Let me set it up and try and figure out the ins and outs. Um,
It's a smart way of going about it, I would think. So
Thanks.
was the goal, yeah, like was the goal always to run your own agency, or were you
No.
looking for were you looking at jobs that you wanted, or were you sort of saying, okay, this person that would get this job would be someone who have the skill set that I want to run my own agency. So let's
Right.
look at those skills and learn those things.
I was looking for jobs, one that I could do, I know, but also that I could grow in. So the goal is never to run my own agency, really ever. Even like after I started with Jinim, that was really never the goal. I really wanted to get on with a company and stay on with the company. So get on with a company that, it was like written in their, mission. We're looking for someone to grow with us. I was definitely okay with just working for somebody and making it what I wanted to make it.
Right.
Um,
And
yeah. So
how did you end up finding Acadium, which at the time was Gen M?
I I think it was a Facebook ad. And because I had started this journey in November of 2018, and I didn't find Jenim until like August or September of 2019. So I don't know what happened. I feel like it was like God was like, okay, here you go. Because it was, yeah, it was just it was just all of a sudden there. And I was like, oh, okay, let me look at this. And so I was like, well, I had made profiles on a whole bunch of different platforms. So it was like, man, this will be easy. So I put it up there. I followed the directions of like reaching out to a certain number of people. And then people just started messaging me and it was like, oh yay.
It's a good
Um,
feeling. It's a good
yeah,
feeling.
it definitely was, especially after, so long of interviewing and not having enough experience or having too much experience in terms of being a professional. So it was definitely encouraging.
So you've done 3 apprenticeships. I know that you've done this other work that we've talked about. Fast forward to today, you
Mhm,
run Live Your Basics, which is your own agency.
mhm.
Tell us a little bit about the work that you do there and how you ended up making the decision to start that.
So with that right now, because it's still growing, it's in its little baby phase. I'm really focusing just on social media and the social media aspect of digital marketing. So, not going into funnels and things like that, but very much focusing on a platform and community management, creating content for that, making a posting schedule and a content calendar for that. Just really focusing my efforts on one platform for people, or focusing my attention on a blog or blog writing or researching for them. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Well, I mean, I would be so there are a few things that I'm curious about, but I think the second part of the question for that one was how did you end up making the decision to
Right,
do
right.
that? Because it sounds like this wasn't always part of the plan.
Right. I think really just because I wasn't getting anywhere with applying for jobs with other companies, it was like, well, you have all you have all this portfolio stuff, put it together and just present yourself. So maybe you can do something freelancing, do something contract wise where, it's a easier sell, I feel like, to companies. And so it kind of just grew from there of, well, I am working for myself. However, I could take it to the next level and really kind of take on someone's social media. And then with that, have people who are helping me. They're starting just like I started, and I can totally let them into my world and we can work together to improve this person's social media presence. So it kind of was just very, very organic, well, I'm doing this. Okay, I could do a little bit more.
And how do you think about your career now?
Really, with everything going on and us being at home more, I really have nothing else to do except to kind of learn as much as I can and really hone in on what I'm already doing. So I've just found so many more resources. I've talked to a ton of people, and through talking with those people, um, I'm realizing, okay, what I'm doing, I can literally build into whatever I want, whether that's selling courses, whether that's consulting, just whatever that looks like. And so starting, when I first kind of started this out, it was like, well, I can freelance for people and I can help them and this and that. And now it's feeling more like, okay, I can be brought on board with a company as their like social media department. I can make this bigger than I think I thought just for myself, because there's so much happening in social media that it's like, well, who am I to think, I'm coming from such a different industry. Who am I to think I'm gonna come in here and make a splash? And like very much imposter syndrome.
I
Very
think
much
I think
so.
I think you'll make a splash. Like we said, I think the industries aren't all that different. It's just
True.
telling great stories, and it sounds like you're quite good at that. Um,
Oh, thanks.
you mentioned resources and learning
Hmm.
new things and taking this
Hmm.
time to learn as much as you can. When it comes to learning, when you say I'd like to learn a new skill, um, are there like a few places that you look to first? What does your process look like for figuring out how you're going to go about acquiring that skill?
So I kind of go about it a whole bunch of different ways. One, I literally just do an internet search of, I might be scrolling through Twitter, Facebook, and see someone that I'm following and they're offering this service. And so I'll do an internet search and see if it's something that, one, that I want to do, but two, that I might have that skill set to do, or I'm very big on kind of trying to embrace my personality and things that I can do if it fits my personality, because I'm very much past the point of my life and my career of trying to force myself to do things that I just naturally don't like doing. So if it's a skill that I want to do, if it's a skill that I'm set up to do. So I'll do an internet search and I'll find, different blogs and such. I've been all over Buffer's blog recently, their blog, and someone else, Social Media Today, and just looking at the different resources that they're offering up. Um, or I'll, find someone that I like on Instagram or Facebook. I'll go to their website and I'll see, well, what services are they offering? Maybe, and I'll look into that service. Is this something that I want to do? And from there, I'll, joining like Facebook groups or joining groups that, with like-minded people is a huge, huge resource. So I'll go in there and I'll, what are the best programs to learn this skill or to learn this program or this software? And they'll just riddle off all these different options. And so then you go from there.
Cool.
It's pretty much my process.
Sounds good, as long as it works for you.
Yeah.
I find the last point interesting about these Facebook groups, and the thing that comes to mind for me is communities of people. Have you been pleasantly surprised by like the support that people are just willing to give in those communities?
Yeah, I have been. It's
It always amazes me as well how many people there
yeah,
are on the internet that are just who've either been through something before, and we see this on Acadium a lot. People who've done it before, and someone else is just starting, whether
yeah,
it is learning a new skill or embarking on some kind of a journey, and someone out there
yeah.
on the internet is there to say, "Hey, I've done this before. Here's some advice."
Yes, and people get really detailed with it. I was reading something right before we started chatting. Um, Gosh, what was it? Oh, she couldn't figure out how to come up with someone posted in a group, she couldn't figure out, how to come up with, like, how to create a content calendar because she couldn't think of ideas because she was working in an industry so far from what she knew. And someone in the, comments, posted, bulleted, "Well, you can do this, you can do that, you can do this, think about this, think about that." And it's like, "Wow, okay." That's Yeah, people really in those groups, people really take their time to give their time to help other people. It's really refreshing because you would think people would be like, "Oh, it's our competition," and no, not at all. I'm sure it's not like that in every group, but I think I've definitely been fortunate enough to be a part of groups where they're just so helpful.
I have one last question for you, or
Okay.
maybe a couple more. We've got a little bit of time, but
Okay.
one that I'm curious to hear your response to is, I think I've been asking this to a few people that we've had on. Right now, I know a lot of people who've been laid off from their jobs, and some people are sort of taking this as a time to reflect about what they want to do next,
Mhm.
try to reskill or upskill themselves, and basically start this process of a career change. And there are lots of people out there who are looking for their first job. You've been
Mhm.
through the process of the career change before. If you were sort of starting out on that journey day one right now, what would you be telling yourself, knowing what you know now?
I'd probably tell myself to join online communities sooner. Yeah, to kind of dive in headfirst sooner. Kind of, immerse yourself within this new industry as soon as possible because you're not doing other things. You're not going to be able to soak it up and really understand where you want to go with it until you do. Yeah.
I appreciate that answer. To me, the first thing that comes to mind when you say that is this idea of like vulnerability, which I think can be difficult for some people. Like
Yeah.
sometimes joining a community, I think, can be intimidating, but if you have this ability to be vulnerable and say like, "Hey, I don't have all the answers, and there are people
Mhm.
here that want to support me,"
Yeah.
you can get that support more quickly.
Yeah.
And maybe before we wrap it up here, how do you think about the future for this agency that you're starting? So I know we talked about it a little bit, but
Yeah.
you said it's in its really early days, but if you think like a few years from now, where do you want to go with it?
Well, I think I would actually like to move into consulting. But I do think before I can do that, I have to really get my hands dirty with social media and with doing the things that, I'm gonna eventually want to advise people on. But I definitely think consulting, I really kind of want to set up like a shop part and possibly sell like home office supplies because I love stuff like that. Like a good day is walking into to Office Depot and going crazy.
That's awesome. I love that stuff too. That's
Yes.
amazing.
Yes. So that I think that actually might be around the corner sooner rather than later. Um, but and that's really just through taking into account the things that I found just in the past couple of weeks, just, kind of the opportunities that are there that no one really sees. So, yeah, I think consulting is where I want to kind of go into.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, wish you all the best in the
Yeah.
future.
Thank
And
you.
thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course, anytime. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.